Steph talked about his final shot after the game.
The shot was one I take 10 out of 10 times, and you know, we ran a play that was kind of, we got a decent look off of, you know, kind of a bobble catch, and I, you know, could see the rim, so I shot it. I'll live with that. We always talk about that, you know, myself and Clay, in terms of shots that we take. You live with it, and you know, I'd shoot that shot every day of the week.
See, what did you make of Steph missing the potential game winner there?
I mean, he just missed a shot. He missed a shot that he typically can make. Steve Curry ran a great set. They run a back screen for Draymond, throw it to the corner, and then they run a back pick for Steph, allow him to loop around to be able to get. That's an open look in NBA, and Steph typically is going to knock it down. So they had an opportunity, but that don't mean they were going to win the game. There was 8 seconds on the clock. There's still a lot of time to beat, but they did give themselves an opportunity. If you look at how everything was supposed to play out, they weren't supposed to win this game. Man, they lost KD in Game 5. They lose Clay in Game number 6, and Steph didn't play a great game. Man, this was almost like college. I mean, this was, I thought I was looking at college at the end, where they were trying to take the ball off his hand, they were trapping him, and they were challenging the other Warriors. But Steve Kerr and the staff, you got to give them credit. They did give themselves an opportunity to force a game number 7, Nick.
And listen, I'm not going to kill Steph for that final shot. The game as a whole is a different story, and I'll get to that in a second. But that final shot, first of all, is a brilliant out-of-bounds play Steve Kerr and Mike Brown drew up. The way it looked like the ball potentially could go out of bounds. You saw Serge Ibaka kind of pause and look at it, which is exactly what they wanted to have happen, because it gave Serge gets lost for a second. Steph gets a good look. Now, they didn't need a 3, but they drew it up for a 3 anyway because they thought they could get a cleaner look at it, and they did get a clean look at it. And when Steph says you'll live with it, you will live with it. You got a good shot, you live with the results. What's tough for Steph is he's had to live with a bunch of these with none of them ever going in. He's now shot 9 of these in the playoffs, final 24 seconds to take the lead. He's 0 for 9. And he's shot, I think, 6 of them in the final 10 seconds, 0 for 6.
And the irony to it all, even though he's 0 for 9, no one would say Steph's not a clutch player.
100%. And so that's why I said I'm not going to kill him at all for the shot. Those are tough shots, man. Like, game-winning shots in the playoffs are tough shots in any circumstance.
I got to take you back a little bit. You got to. That's a tough shot for a normal. That's not a tough shot for Steph Curry.
But even Steph Curry, the greatest three-point shooter we've ever seen.
That shot right there is not a tough shot for him.
It's not a tough shot, but the odds of making it are 45%. You know what I mean? 50, we want to call it 50%. My point is,
he is the greatest shooter that's ever dribbled or shot a basketball.
Right, and for his career, he's around 40% on threes. That's even if we're going to say that's an easier than usual 3, which I don't think it is. Like, so even when you're a great three-point shooter, it's one of the downsides, too, in a game-winning situation when you don't have to shooting a 3, is that a great three-point shot, unless it's wide open set, it's more likely than not you're not going to make it. But for the game, I said yesterday, man, they needed 85 points, see, from Steph, Clay, and somebody else. The somebody else was Iguodala. He gave you 22. Clay was sensational with 30. Draymond, I know he had a bunch of turnovers. He had almost half the team's rebounds, almost half the team's assists. 11 points, 18 rebounds, 13 assists. Of their big 4, the guy who had the worst game was Steph. Of their big 4, the guy who didn't hold up his end last night more than anybody was Steph. And that, to me,
I debate you on that one. Draymond with 8 turnovers was worse than Steph.
But Dre did everything else for him.
There's a reason why, because they're offensively challenged, what Steph had to do was going to be monumental. Man, they're basically only guarding 2 people all night. That's why Iggy's able to get off. But Draymond, in his inability to be able to complete the offense or run the offense, to me, he played worse than Clay. And he gave up the big drive to Pascal at the end. Tried to go for a steal. Pascal gets the easy bunny.
But I want to ask you about Steph. So Steph Curry is now 3-2 in the finals. No finals MVP. Where does that leave his legacy? Does it impact his legacy?
It impacts his legacy in this regard. We talked before the series, if they win, if he wins finals MVP, it elevates him too. I don't think this series drops him any. I don't think he all of a sudden goes backwards, but he had a chance to, at the end of the series, be a no-doubter top 20 all-time player, arguably in the top 15. He would have every box you would need to check on the resume. Now he's still missing the one. And they lost this finals in a similar way they lost the 2016 finals, which was in the deciding game, Steph Curry didn't play very well. He was 6 for 9 in Game 17 in 2016. He was 6 for 17 last night. Both those games, he doesn't really get his three-point shot going. Like, that hurts him. And it doesn't downgrade him from where he was, but it's more the opportunity cost of what it could have been for him.
Yes, because it was set up for him, and you had talked about Steph potentially being a top NBA player. Now, can he get that without being a Finals MVP?
Right.
And this is what it does, Jenna. It doesn't make you go down, but it makes people have to look at and explain, oh, he was in 5 finals? Wow, really? Which one of our great players have we had in 5 finals and they weren't the MVP? And they won 3 of them.
None of them.
So there you go. So now he's in a class of he's one of one. And where does it sit as far as NBA history? That's up to those who like to be able to make these lists and everything. But to me, it makes it hard for him to be a top all-time NBA player, top 10 all-time, if he's not an MVP in the finals.
How much wiggle room is there for him to I don't know, raise up in your eyes a little? If he has to do everything by himself basically next year with no KD and no Clay, is that going to change your minds at all?
So this is what's the killer for
It's going to be like James Harden. What do we care? You don't win no championships? Okay. Don't nobody care?
And this is what's the killer for him. Assuming KD leaves, which we assume he will, Clay's hurt, the team's aging. Is Steph Curry going to be in the NBA Finals again? Is he going to have a chance to fill in the one blank on his resume? That is now more up in the air than ever before.
And they had the opportunity. He had the opportunity. KD wanted to get the 3 with LeBron. Steph had an opportunity to get 4 and go up front in front of LeBron. Man, you have to be able to explain how many times he was there, how many times they won, and why. Why didn't Steph, for 2 weeks, in 5 opportunities for 2 weeks, why couldn't he be the best player in the world? That's for the experts like Nick Wright and people to explain.
It's a tough one for him, and it's just he's such a great player.
Right.
And I thought he had the best game of his career in this series. And once again, he's going to go home without that other trophy, that one that Kawhi Leonard took home.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, did the Raptors only win because of the Warriors' injuries? We'll talk